Good morning, everyone. So, in today's session, we are going to talk about open data to open government. Okay, so how open data leads to open government data and how that leads to open government. So, we'll be discussing about the benefits, what are the adaptation barriers, and the myths related to open data and open government data. So these are the session highlights. So in this session, we'll be talking about open data and open government. We'll be providing insights of what open data is and what open government data is. We'll be discussing about the differences between open data, public data, and open government data. And moving down, we'll be discussing about what the benefits of open data are and the barriers and challenges regarding the open data. Then we'll be discussing about how open data can be used for innovation and what are the common myths associated with these. Okay, so let's start our session on open data and open government data. Okay, so in recent years, there have been a development across um, there has been development across IoT and development across the how informations are transferred and how informations are gathered throughout different systems, throughout different government organizations and other things. Okay, so the availability of data has grown significantly. So with this pressure being placed on all kinds of public organizations to release their raw data. Okay, so there is large available of data, and these data are captured from different heterogeneous sources, and there is challenge on how these data can be used to generate value and how these data can be used for innovation and how these data can be used to enhance the services provided by different domains, that may be private domains or public domains or government as well. Okay, so there is a critical opportunities for power and profit. Okay, so some of the services um, uh, some of the services are being provided by different organizations. They are providing services in free of cost, but what they are doing is they are gathering the data and they are converting the data into monetary value. Like I will be given, the users will be given to use their system free of cost, but what they will do is they will gather the information about the user or the activities of the user that are done within their system, and those data are actually analyzed and the value is generated out of that data, and it is used to gain profit. Okay, to convert that data into monetary values. And also with the development of algorithms and machine learning technologies, the data that are being generated are able to generate the data that are raw or that are being collected are able to be converted into values. So basically, if talking about open data, so if we say that um, something is free to use, reuse, and to improve, so these are the basic pillars of open data. Okay, and the most important the government is the most important part in this structure. So what happens is there are different government bodies, and government is actually the largest data collector in this world. Okay, there are multiple domains. It can be traffic related data, it can be government day-to-day activities, and such data. Government is the largest data collector in the current scenario. So multiple the government related data that will be used from multiple domains, and this collected data can be used to enhance the services provided by the government. So in the past, what would happen is the government would do some work, then some data would be generated, but that data or the information was in a closed cycle, right? But what the government is moving down, or what this open data initiative is doing, is it is trying to make the data accessible for all, for them to use, reuse, and improve. So basically, accessibility, use, reuse, and improve, these are the main three gist of open data or open government data. And these are the basis on the right to information and participation. So if there is certain public, if some data are collected by public participation, then that data should be used by public, or that data should be available for public to use that data for that maybe for improving the services provided, or to maintain transparency, or to maintain accountability, or to maintain integrity. So basically what happens is, if there is open government data provided, then that increases transparency. So how let's take a scenario of government budget, right? So the case of corruption can be decreased if we provide uniform data, or if we provide data at regular interval on how let's say on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis, how a certain governmental unit is spending its money, on what factors are it spending its money, what is the revenue collected, and all other stuff. So if such data are made available to the public, then what they can do is they can use that data, they can generalize that data, they can analyze that data, and on the basis of that, they can see if the services provided and if the services provided are up to mark, or if there is transparency, is there any accountability, or is there any integrity of the service provided or not. So I guess you all from this discussion, I guess you all have something in mind, like what the differences in open data, open government data, and public data is. So to differentiate it, what we can say is any data that is free to use, free to reuse, and free to enhance is open data. So that may be an intersection of private data or public data, right? So let's say we have a private organization, we are collecting data. So our organization wants to make that data public for reuse and redistribution. Then we can group that data as open data. And the next thing is open government data. So that means any data that has been captured through government process or government regular activities, which is freely available for users to use. So that's open government data. And the next thing is public data, which is just the data which is collected from the public. So that may or may not be open, because not every data that is collected can be made open, because there can be privacy related things or some security related things. So not every data will be open data, but open data, open government data, and public data, these may coexist with each other. So through open data initiatives, the government bodies all around the world are developing data portals to disseminate the data available at their end to the general public. So some of the examples are nationaldata.gov.nb. So this is the national data portal of Nepal government. Okay, so so open data, open government data, and public data, so they can exist and they can coexist with each other. Okay, so government bodies all around the world are actually preparing data portals to disseminate the information that they have gathered for the public to reuse. So some of the examples are nationaldata.gov.np. This is the national data portal of Nepal government. So if you are if you are a student, or if you are a researcher, or if you are a marketing manager, then what you can do is, if you would like to get access to national data of Nepal, then you can just go to nationaldata.gov.np, and there you will be see a good representation, filters and graphical representation according to filter down the data according to the government local bodies and you can get data related to agriculture, related to population census, related to migration activities, related to agriculture land available within the country, and all other stuff. So all these data are made public by the government. Similarly, data.gov.uk, this is the government data portal of UK. Similarly, you can see other data.gov for US and data.gov.sg for Singapore. So, let's now discuss about what is the relationship between open data and government. So, through open data, how can we help government, or how can the government be more transparent, or what are the social and economical values that the open data will impact on e-governments or in the government's structure or governance working phenomena. So the first important thing is transparency. So through open data, since the government is releasing data on regular interval of time, so what it will do is it will create a transparency on what is happening and what is being done by the government. So the society, the citizen, and different stakeholders, what they can do is they can get insights of government initiatives and government legitimacy. So let's say the government said that, okay, the agriculture land of our country has been increased by this much percentage, or let's say the import for agriculture related products has been decreased by this much percentage. So let's say the government is claiming such thing. So what we can do is, if that data is already made public by the government, then what we can do is we can just cross check whether the claimed by the government is in accordance to the data that is available or that has been provided or not. So that will increase transparency. Similarly, for budgeting things, for corruption control, it will help maintain transparency within the organization. And the next thing is it is not just assessing the data. Okay, so it is not just assessing the data, but it is about using and reusing that data. So we'll be using that data, we'll be analyzing those data, we'll be adding values from that data, and what we'll do is we'll be linking one data set to another data set and add more value to that data. So that's the thing about transparency. Similarly, it will add some social and commercial value. So since the government is the largest data collector and all the data from different sources are collected, so what we can do is we can find the relationship between different data sets, right? And linking different data sets, what we can do is we can add more value to the singleton data. So that which will add social and commercial value. So let's say if I am a marketing agency, then what I can do is I can just use the data related to migration of users, or I can use the data I can use the data like what is the income source of users, and what is the monthly expenditure of a particular user at certain regions. Then what I can do is I can just initiate a marketing campaign based upon that data, which will automatically increase my commercial value of my organization. So that's the one thing. Then the next thing is participatory government. So what open data does is, if the government is frequently providing its data to the users, then what will happen is there will be a data-driven participatory approach in the government process, right? And that will help in the decision-making or policy-making things for the government. So let's say there is a policy, and after implementing that policy, what we'll do is we'll just collect some data and we'll analyze that. So what's the impact of that policy based upon that data? So that will be a data-driven approach, or the data will provide us evidence either that is a good policy, or if that decision was a good decision or bad decision. So based on the open data provided, we can make such decisions. So till now what we have talked about is what are open government data, how that data should be, how that data are generated, and what is the impact of such data, right? So now in the next session, in the next slide, what we'll talk about is how the data captured by the government can be made public for users to use. So in the figure, what you can see is a open government data life cycle. So what it describes is what are the different steps that are necessary to collect and use government open data. Okay, so this life cycle consists of three main steps. So the first one is the collection of data, or the pre-processing step, which are indicated in blue rectangles. Then the next is data exploitation, which are indicated in oval purple set. And the next thing is data maintenance, that is indicated in the hexagon. Okay, so let's talk about the each step individually. So first thing is data creation. So these steps involves collecting of data from different government bodies, okay, or different data sources. So that is data creation. So after data is created, what have to be done is the data should be selected, and it has to be filtered out, because there can be different privacy or individual information within that data. So let's say I have given my data to some government portal, and I have uploaded my citizenship number, my PAN information, my passport number, and other things, right? But those information are critical or security related, uh, privacy related information, right? So what have to be done? Those data has to be filtered out, or those data has to be marked in some contents, or that has to be anomalized. So that part is done by data selection. So it basically on the basis of the policy or what kind of data are collected, and we just seek what whether this data can be made public or not. Are there any security concerns? Are there any privacy related concerns or not? And based on that, we'll remove that data. So that depends on, that will be done on data selection. Then next thing is data harmonization. So after selecting data, what is to be done is the validity of the data is the major concern in all public data sets, right? Whether that data is valid or not, whether that data is complete as a whole or not. Let's say I have a population census data, but that population census data is just captured from a small group of certain place, right? Then that information is not complete. So if we analyze something based upon that data, then the information retrieved from that data will not make any sense, or that will be a misinformation, right? So what we have to do is we have to harmonization of data is necessary. So that should be done on questions like whether this data is valid or not, whether this data is complete or not, whether while collecting this data where we where the data collected from a biased source or not. So all these all these questions should be raised, and all the analysis should be done in data harmonization. So the next thing is data publishing. So as we have discussed in the previous slide, that all the data or all the data portals that government have made from different parts of the world. So the next thing is data publishing. So that can be through we can develop data portals, we can implement data APIs to transfer data from one system to another system, or so on. So the next thing is data publishing. And so after publishing the data, so it is now open for all users to use that data, right? So up to this step, it is the role of the government agency or any public agency or any private agency which are doing innovation related to the data, right? So now once the data is available or once the data is published, now what needs to be done is the data has to be exploited, right? So we have to do different analysis on the data, and based upon that analysis, we have to try to add some value from that data. So the next step is data interlinking. So there can be wide range of data collected from different data sets, right? And rather than being more dependent on single data set, we can combine different data set as per our objective or as per our scenario or as per our necessity, and we can merge those data and create a mesh of data sets which can add more value. So that's done in data interlinking thing. And the next thing is data discovery. So once we publish the data, so what has to be done is once the data is published, the end users, or let's say the citizens or the innovators, tech enthusiasts, what they have to do is they have to be made aware that there is this kinds of data has been published, this kind of data is available for you to use, right? So that depends on data discovery. So organizing different hackathon events, that can increase the data visibility thing and all other stuff. So the in data discovery phase, what we have to do is we just have to make user aware that this kind of data are available for you to use and make them aware of that. Then the next step is data exploration. So in data exploration, what we do is we innovate out of the provided data, right? So so for data exploration and data exploitation, what we will do is we will be innovating. These are the innovating steps. So based upon the data that is provided, what we are going to do is we are going to solve certain problems, associated with day-to-day life of citizens, or we are solving a specific business problems, or we are tackling a certain natural disaster thing, that falls under data exploration and exploitation. So in data exploration, it is just a basic step where we can visualize the data, we can generalize the data, we can aggregate the data and get some basic value out of that data. Whereas in data exploration place, what will be done is the data will be reused and reused. Okay, so use and reuse. So those data will be reused by different services, and let's say we are going to apply machine learning algorithms, we are going to generate a prediction model and all other things. So those are done on data exploitation. And so after data exploitation, there is data curation. So what happens in data curation is, let's say I generated a data set for the number of diseases, or let's say number of COVID cases for a particular period of time. Okay, then after some time, that data has to be managed, right? So if there are new cases, then the data set should be updated. If there are certain errors, then that should be if there are certain errors, or let's say if there is a validation issue which has been raised from data exploration phase by a group of individuals, then what we have to do is, based upon that finding, we have to update that data and we have to clean that data. So that is done in data curation phase. So throughout the life cycle of this data, this will be this will not be, it will be a reoccurring cycle. Okay, so now we have talked about what open data is, what are the sources of open data, what is the what is the life cycle of open government data. So now we'll be more focused on the benefits of open data. Okay, so the benefits of open data can be summarized with its benefit in political and social scenarios, with its benefit in economical value, with its benefit in legislation value. Okay, so the first thing is political and social thing, social benefit. So what happens is it raises transparency of the government. So that's the major political advantage of open data. And the next thing is democratic accountability. It raises accountability of the government for the tasks that they will be carrying out, or for the policy that they will be creating. And the next thing is it create a trust of create a trust of that government for the citizen. And other things include equal access to data. Based upon that data, new government services or new government tools can be developed, right? So these are the benefits of benefits with respect to political and social scenarios. And the next thing is economic benefit. So the main economic